October 11th, 1975, New York City, 10 p.m. Creator Lorne Michaels arrives at 30 Rockefeller Plaza for the very first live airing of Saturday Night, a new sketch show conceived by Lorne. They have 90 minutes to air, and there are several issues with the cast and crew. Lorne is aided by Dick Ebersol, as well as Lorne's cousin assistant Neil Levy. Also arriving for the show is comedian Andy Kaufman. Chevy has also brought his fiancée Jacqueline to the set. The cast and crew gather to rehearse their first sketch, with John and Gilda playing a couple and Dan and Garrett playing robbers.
Hi there!
In the middle of the act, a set of lights comes crashing down and sparks a small fire on the couch that is quickly put out.
Your family just tells...
John nearly gets into it with the light technician, who ends up quitting after everyone else dumps on him. Garrett is told by Billy Preston and his band that he is too uptight and needs to loosen up before he goes on camera. Meanwhile, head writer Michael O'Donoghue butts heads with network censor Joan Carbuncle over the raunchy jokes in the script, leading Michael to mock Joan's religious faith. Lorne goes to find Rosie Schuster, his wife and co-writer for the show. She tries to get John to agree to put on a bee costume for a sketch, which he finds degrading because he views himself as a more serious performer.
I am a trained professional.
Together, they discuss the show and its potential, as well as whether or not Rosie wants to be credited under her maiden name or as Michaels. Lorne and Dick are called to the green room to meet with NBC executives, who will decide the show's fate by the end of the night, or just play a rerun of The Tonight Show to fill the slot.
Wow, firm handshake. I appreciate your support, gentlemen. Thank you.
Dick is approached by Dave Tibet, an exec who doesn't have faith in Saturday Night. However, Tibet is impressed by Chevy when he comes in and puts on a little show for the big wigs, and Tibet approaches Chevy about potentially replacing Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show.
You held that room like a pro.
Oh, thank you.
I mean it.
Chevy brags about it in the writer's room, but is warned by Herb Sargent that he will eventually die alone and forgotten because he's such an asshole.
I imagine you'll die alone.
I can't wait.
Outside the studio, Lorne has to break up a fight between a crew member and a guy delivering the bricks for the set to be built. At the same time, Dick tries to help Lorne, but also asks him to explain what the show is really supposed to be about, and Lorne cannot give him a clear answer. While preparing for a sketch, John and Chevy get into a fight in the dressing room. John complains because he doesn't want to shave his beard, until it takes some convincing from Lorne and Rosie to get him to go through with it. Lorne and John then go up to rehearse their weekend update segment. Lorne does a bit awkwardly, but John makes everybody in the room laugh with his high-energy performance. Lorne then approaches John, who still technically had not signed his contract, and John appears to finally agree to do it. Lorne gets a phone call from Johnny Carson himself in his office. While Carson initially seems friendly, he makes it clear that he thinks they're going to pull the plug on Lorne's show since he already claimed the Saturday night spot, but also because he knows how the NBC executives mess around.
And also, I suppose I wanted to make sure we don't end up stepping on each other's dicks.
Right.
Lorne frantically goes looking for him and enlists in Neil's help with finding John. Neil goes around asking and ends up taking a hit of a joint from one of the writers, which gets him too stoned and causes him to lock himself in a room while the cast tries to talk him down. Legendary comedian Milton Berle arrives for his spot during the Rumpus Hour sketch of the show. Tibet finds Lorne and points out that there are still issues with the sound system and warns him about replacing his show with an episode of Carson. The cast is set to do an ancient Greece-themed sketch until they pivot to having Jane, Gilda, and Lorraine do a construction worker sketch while they have Dan walking in wearing a tight outfit for them to gawk at him. While this happens, Chevy finds Jacqueline talking to Milton, and he confronts him over it. While Chevy hurls petty insults, Milton is unfazed and hits him back with how he will end up becoming irrelevant, all while whipping his dick out in front of Chevy and Jacqueline, who is somewhat impressed to make it worse.
You're not a star. You're barely in the fucking building.
Finally, Carlin storms off when he gets into an argument with Michael over Carlin's complaints on the script. Dick finds Lorne in the stairwell and tries to pull him together until he lets him know that nobody at the studio has any faith in the show and that they are counting on him to fail.
I know you all make fun of me and my clothes behind my back. But Lorne, I'm killing myself for this show.
Lorne walks out and accidentally gets sprayed with fake blood for a sketch. On his way down in an elevator, Lorne talks to Jim, who says he knows how people perceive him with his Muppets, but talks to Lorne in the sense that he understands that he is doing something that he is passionate about. Lorne exits the studio and sees Billy and Valerie getting in a cab to leave. He goes to a bar where he finds a writer, Alan Zweibel, lamenting that the comedian that he wrote for is not using any of his jokes and is bombing. Lorne looks over Alan's jokes and hires him on the spot as a writer.
You're hired, Lorne Michaels.
Alan Zweibel.
Fucking.
Afterwards, Lorne goes to Rockefeller Plaza, where he finds Gilda watching John ice skating. Gilda muses on how 20 years from now, when they become famous, if they will remember this evening. Lorne talks to John and convinces him to officially sign on. Lorne returns to the studio and is fixed up by Rosie. Lorne gathers the cast and crew until they are confronted by Tibet, who threatens to shut everything down then and there unless Lorne can say what the show is about. Lorne then finally says that the show is an idea of what people can expect on a Saturday night in New York City, from the mundane to the eccentric. With this, the cast and crew are energized to get their shit together in 10 minutes.
Do you even know what the show is? Tell me.
All-nighter in the city.
The union guys help Leo lay the bricks. Lorne gets a new sound director. They help Carlin come down from Lockjaw after he does too much cocaine. Garrett performs a brief song with Preston's band, and Chevy does Weekend Update. The audience is seated, and the clock is about to strike 11:30. With seconds to spare, Tibet finally tells them to go live.
Go live.
Okay, go live.
Michael and John first do their Wolverine sketch, which gets a huge laugh and applause from the cast, crew, and audience. Then Chevy takes to the stage to say these iconic words for the very first time live from New York. It's Saturday night.
Live from New York, it's Saturday night!